Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Rama, Rama, Hare.
We are back with another talk, attempting to do what Crawley said and to harness the lightning for hire. you know, we've only had one conversation prior to turning this camera on. We, haven't talked for this 8 days. And since then, we've had a great many of things happen. There's so much that can happen in a few hours, let alone a week that passes by. We're going to just talk about a lot of different things. One thing is, I've read portions of a great many of holy books. Some of them was written in the 90s from Dalai Lamas, which is Tibetan Buddhism. If I'm not wrong, I think that's what they call them, like the monks, like the high up.
I think Jesus Christ! I just spilled my coffee. Yeah, the Dalai Lama is like.
Be back in a second.
All right. I always thought that he was like the main guy, like the leader. I know like the most recent Dalai Lama, who's still alive, I believe. He's like basically like they're. I don't know if they have like a lineage or if they select these people, but who I know of, who's the Dalai Lama, is like he's like the leader of the Tibetan Buddhism.
Yeah.
But there might be multiple of them. I'm not 100% sure.
There's a quote by Crawley many years ago when Crawley was in his younger days. He's talking about the sacred nature to the law that was dictated to him by Alwas, if I'm saying his name, Iwas. And he's comparing the scriptures to be equally as holy and sacred to the true Dalai Lamas themselves. I've also yesterday had some time to delve kind of deeply into the mystical works of Sir Edward Kelly himself. Amazing things that he has uncovered. Some of them we talked about briefly. We'll get in more in depth with these things. He worked with also magician, occultist John Dee. And I've really can say I've learned, a good portion of information that's passed this week. And if you don't care, I'll get into some if you want to add something real quick.
I was going to say John Dee was the. So I think his time was like in the 1600s.
Yeah.
And he was in England. And the Queen Elizabeth at that time, she had, I guess it was common back then. I'm not sure if she was unique in this way or many queens had this, but she had her own like magician and seer. They called them seers.
Mystic seers.
Yeah, so that I guess he could give her insight onto things. So this he worked for her partially. And which is very interesting.
Yeah.
And
that's probably why he was. Edward Kelly must have as well, since his name changed to Sir Edward Kelly. So was he knighted? I guess had to be, didn't he?
I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah.
But John Dee, he did scrying.
Mm-hmm. He was telling me about this.
Scrying, and he used a like a trapezoidron to scry from, and he
Yeah.
opened up these gates and talked and contacted these angels, and they revealed to him the Enochian keys, which in the Enochian is this really strange language that is more syntactical in nature.
Strangely enough, it's starting to kind of resurface a little bit after
Mm-hmm.
being kind of shunned away for so many years too.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going to Edward Kelly, I didn't realize that John Dee uh, kind of delved into the Enochian keys either. Um, so what I read yesterday, and this is really mysterious, and I'd like to see more people, looking at this, obviously, safely, because the Enochian keys, the magic, it seems to be, from what I gather, could be pretty sticky type of magic. A lot of things, for example, that was revealed to Edward Kelly was very interesting. There's been rumors that he was given such holy, sacred information that it's possible he really didn't know how to deal with all that at once, and it was a lot of strain for his mind, much like the gentleman who never finished writing the actual Necronomicon. Uh, if I'm not mistaken, he was called the Mad Arab.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to clarify real quick. I think it's LaVey himself who talks about this, maybe, that they called him the Mad Arab, but, he was crazy, in other words. But actually, he was finding these truths, and he was, pushing away a lot of things that the system didn't want to be pushed away. He was the opposite, and that's why he was called that. But on the other hand, he probably, from what I gather, uh, did open up some doors that was too much for him to handle.
Well, I've read the entire Necronomicon twice in the past.
I didn't know you read the whole thing.
Yep. And it's very interesting. Like, it starts out like
it talks a lot about Crowley. The introduction.
The introduction does talk about him a lot. It talks about him and Lovecraft because they're very much connected with it. Like the actual manuscripts, the original manuscripts of the Necronomicon. Okay, so what's so weird about the Necronomicon is people thought it was like not real. It was like fabled to exist.
Evidently, Lovecraft himself.
Yeah, he talks about Cthulhu, and he talks about all of these things that are in the Necronomicon.
I think they was trying to keep it hushed up.
I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe in like accessible Sumerian mythology, maybe those names are there. But yeah, he had striking similarities in some of the things in Lovecraft's works and the things that were actually in the Necronomicon. And the ancient Sumer was a very interesting culture to begin with. I mean, they had like pretty advanced knowledge on the solar system. Like they had depictions of the solar system where the sun was in the middle, and the planets were orbiting around it, and the planets were of like the right relative sizes. Like Jupiter was the biggest. Saturn. Neptune was second, or however the proportions are right. Which is really interesting. How could they have known that? Because a lot of people in ancient times thought that they believed in what they called the firmament. In the firmament, they literally believed that the stars that you see in the sky were actually like inside of this planet. Like they didn't think.
Wow.
Yeah, they didn't think there was anything other than this planet. They saw all this stuff. Yeah, they called it the firmament. But yeah, those guys, they seem to have a pretty advanced knowledge on it. Yep. And yeah, the Necronomicon starts out by there's all of these seals, and it starts out with like the planets, and you can having the right seal, and by saying the right incantations, the way it sounded was, these like each heavenly body, each planet has a certain corresponding wisdom and insight that you can obtain. And you walk through these gates, you do these rituals, you have to wear the right amulet, and it's very specific. You have to carve the sigils on certain metals, some copper, some silver, some, stone or whatever. And it's very specific. And according to, I think his name is Abdul Al-Hazred. I think that's his name. I don't like calling him the Mad Arab because, I don't think he was necessarily mad. I mean, maybe he was, but um, and he talked about in the book, in the manuscripts, how important it was not to get the slightest thing wrong and how detrimental that could be. And at the end of the book, he's panicking, and he's like, I remember he says, what ritual have I done wrong? He's like, what sigil have I miscarved? Because he was like, bad things were happening to him. Yeah, he could have opened something that was very dangerous. I mean, in the beginning of the book, it talks about
how some occultists and magicians will get into this, and then they go a certain length into it, and then they retire from the whole scene for maybe longer periods of time.
Yeah,
I was just looking at that too, man, yesterday.
Yeah. So it's it even said this too. It said that the Golden Dawn, what Crawley was a member of,
they couldn't eat like
they have very powerful banishings.
Mm-hmm.
For unwanted forces, and even their methods were not sufficient for banishing some of the forces in the Necronomicon. So it's definitely not something to just mess around with.
That's one of the most powerful books of magic. Now, the thing that I wanted to talk about, and me and you haven't even had a chance to really look into all these revelations that I read. So I could be wrong on the date. You mentioned John Dee in the 1600s. I could have sworn that
I'm in 14.
This was 1584.
That could be right too.
And this is Edward Kelly. So this was later on in his life. And, this is somebody who, I think that the way it was, Edward Kelly was kind of like the student of John Dee.
Yeah, that's the way I took it.
But again, I'm just now starting to delve into these things, so I could be wrong about some things. But very interesting stuff that I read. Oh, first of all, going back to the Necronomicon and magic in general, I just want to say, up until just recently, so before, like now, for many, many years, for probably a little bit over 5 years, I've really studied, all kinds of different magic and things about LaVey. He's kind of the one that kind of introduced me to this kind of different world, and then with Crawley, and then especially, both of those great gentlemen have kind of been just a surge of excitement, that the stuff that they got into and the works that they done, especially, with Crawley. But we both would, I'm assuming he would as well, recommend, if you're getting into any type of, I'm happy I didn't jump into rituals and stuff like that and really research this stuff, more on than off, pretty consistently for the last, like I said, 5 years. And, before even, that's not the case with obviously smaller, more simple type of
Rituals.
yeah. But I wouldn't even say right now I'm doing anything. Like I'm just kind of I've been doing a little more cleansing type of magic, like small purifications. Um, but yeah, going back to this though, you know, Edward Kelly, he had a lot of magical wisdom and techniques, and he had a lot of years. But he started to, he recovered what was called the Enochian magic, and he spent a period of time living out in the woods, living like a hermit, like Terrence McKenna talks about. He was isolated for the most part. He had another gentleman that was assisting him with these different things, and what's interesting, but also a little bit unsettling, is he was supposedly going to be writing a book very soon, and he just really changed after this magic. And you know the way that it seems from what I take it, and I could be wrong on this, but it's the way that I took it. Like I said, we talked about it deals with the angels, the Enochian angels,
And who knows what angels
and
is, and their
that's just what
reference,
this is called. And I'm just
some sort of
doing the
spirit intelligence.
yeah. But we can call them anything if you wish. We can use the psychedelic term, hyperdimensional insects, anything, just spiritual beings. Um, but it creates this when working with this magic, and this is something that for the longest time it was looked at very briefly in ancient times, and then as time went on, this was a forbidden type of magic that really nobody had access to it. It kind of people lost touch with what it was. Most people didn't even know what it was, and then just recently it's kind of come back a little bit. But there's a guy that was saying recently, not to get off subject too much, but this could change the reality of what people think that they know, and that this can be scary for the world in general. But yeah, so Kelly was supposed to be writing a book after this, and things was revealed to him at a very quick speed, and a lot of people speculate that this was too much of this sacred information, the mysteries was revealed of why people even are interested in getting into the occult and practicing magic. It's like me and him was talking about earlier. We feel that we are inching slowly our way and slowly picking up different truths. So many things has been revealed to us through deep, free-thinking conversations, to these plant ceremonies, and sometimes these things that we are learning from plants or otherwise seems to take a little bit of a toll on us sometimes. Sometimes it makes this place, which we call our 3D flesh, seems a little bit uncomfortable at times. It's really hard to explain. So God knows what Mr. Kelly was experiencing when this stuff rapidly came forth, but it wasn't long after that he was dead. But what I'm confused about, and I want to do more research on these notes that he had, and it was these truths. I wonder if his assistant, did he know about these things, or was he the one that destroy these notes. Maybe he glanced a little bit at them and it was too much for him to handle. I told him about this, and he proposed that possibly, you know, they didn't want these truths to get out because everything that's already held together by a very thin piece of string would now be snipped, and then the surreal world would, you know, finally. The veil is very thin anyway, and that would just be it, and everything that we think we know is gone.
And I think it's getting thinner and thinner.
I do.
That's
We
the way
talk about this a
like,
lot.
What I said was, I don't think that we can, in this state that we're in, that all humans are in, all animals are in, if we were to hold the truth of reality in our hands, I don't think this reality could sustain itself. I think that it would probably unravel itself, and getting some crazy ear ringing at the moment. I've been reading on conspiracy theorists forums that is the government controlling our minds. A lot of people think that, so maybe my pineal gland just closed up a little bit, so hopefully not. But yeah, you know, if we understood, you know, awakening is the process of getting ever towards the truth, you know, and I'm not even sure that enlightenment means that you know everything. I think that
You're on the path.
Well, I think awakening means awakening is when you realize you start to separate yourself from the cultural linguistic hallucination.
Okay.
You know when you smoke DMT or you do psilocybin, the entities in there do something very interesting, and they it seems like that they are made of language. These entities are
That
made of
you
language.
interact with.
Yes, sir.
There, yeah.
They are made of language, and they sing objects into existence, and they condense objects. Like if I were to hold one of these objects in my hand, I mean, it would blow everybody's mind. Because it looks so unbelievable, you know. And there's something to that, you know. There's something to the word made flesh, you know, and I think magic is that. Magic is speaking things into existence, and you know, our world is made of language. So we gotta be really careful not to fall into these language nets that's cast by our culture. You know, I like to think that magic, you know, it can be used in many different ways. You know, you could use it focusing on your 3D existence and manifest things that you want. Magic can be aimed towards self-aggrandizement. And I don't necessarily think that's wrong, you know, as long as you're not intruding on someone else's will, unless they have, of course, intruded on your will.
Yeah.
I like to think that magic is a way to catalyze enlightenment. Or, you know, Crowley talks about it in Magic and Theory of Practice, that magic is, you know, sort of like jet fuel to accelerate your awakening and your extricating yourself from the confines of matter.
Can I change the subject here just a little bit, man? I'm sorry about that. I got choked in my spit.
It happens.
So, I want to talk to you about this idea that I read in that holy Buddhist book yesterday. And I want to ask what you think about it and what you would apply to your life here. So, a lot of people Man, I keep doing that. But a lot of people who practice Buddhism, according to this book anyway, they have a lot of different opinions and theories of what reincarnation is. And a lot of people who just start out on the path, they set a very small goal for themselves. They don't try to do it all in one lifetime.
Right.
First of all, I just want to say this may be completely unreasonable, but I read that and then I thought,
I don't want to do it in multiple lifetimes.
I want to do it now.
Well, this is where magic comes in. You know?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way.
I do feel the same way. You know, I get the feeling sometimes, you know, I feel trapped. You know, I don't think people that are not on this path
do you know I know exactly what you're talking about.
People that are not on this path, I feel like they, in their minds, they truly believe that this is their one life, and after this, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, you know, our posterity and what they have to live with and what kind of planet they're going to inherit. I'll be gone. That's the way they think. But through heavy psychedelic experiences and insights from living and magic, I truly don't buy that at all. I don't buy that this is our only life. I don't buy that at all. I really don't. And I do sometimes feel trapped, you know, as in, oh my God, I'm gonna have to keep doing this over and over. I'm gonna have to keep suffering. So that motivates you, though.
To an amphet again.
Yes, right. But we've probably done it a million times, you know. And there comes a point in your life, if you start to awaken, where you start to desire, or you start to want to complete and do, but you can't do it any other way but the right way.
Yeah.
Like there is no, you know, cheating. You know, you have to do things the right way. You know, and because if you're doing bad things and you're intruding on other people's will or whatever, that's going to be karma. That's stuff you're going to have to deal with. So, you know, in Buddhism, they talk about you have to resolve all of your karma before you become enlightened. So Buddha, he did something really extraordinary. And I'm talking about the Buddha.
Yeah.
I know there's many different Buddhas throughout the ages, but the Buddha, he did something extraordinary, which was he had a revelation, and he literally sat under a tree, and he somehow resolved his karma in like a few days or something like that.
He made his physical body go through some.
Yes. And he literally just walked around like a beam of light. People, that's how it's described. Like he was literally like a light.
What's some of the stuff he'd done to himself?
Well, in the beginning, he was practicing asceticism, which was just completely neglecting all physical desires. You know, not having sex, not
for a certain
eating
period of time.
For a certain period of time, and then he realized that these people that he was hanging out with and doing these ascetic things with, he thought he realized that, well, they are attached to holiness, you know, and there's something to be said about this false holiness, you know, this fake holy people, you know, that is just, they are just as hung up as a materialist who's clinging to things, you know what I'm saying? So, you know, he realized that wasn't the way either. It's something to do with attachment, you know, and just acting, you know, with the highest consciousness in every situation, but being human too, because we're human, but not being attached to it, not craving, and not, you know, that sort of thing.
That's also what the Dalai Lama said that I was reading about. He said the way to end suffering is to end attachment,
Yes, sir.
and that seems so impossible. Because
But it seems so logical too.
it does. It's so logical, but to somebody, we're not saying we don't have attachments, but
totally
we do feel that it's not as many of as you see a lot.
The Bhagavad Gita talks about that. It says, you know, the more awakened you become, the less attachments you will have. You know, and that you'll usually get down to like a few of them. You know, like a few of them that are kind of really hard to knock off. You know, and this is you know, yeah. So that, you know, Buddhism and Hinduism kind of aims at doing this in multiple lifetimes. You know, how to awaken throughout many lifetimes, and magic
They kind of like, let's get this
is
shit done now.
is like a catalyst to doing this. You know, I think that's the highest magic there is. Really, is, you know, you're not casting spells for your carnal will necessarily. You're casting spells and you're doing magic for your true will.
Now let's look at this, man. If you examine the great work that Crowley has done, for instance, man alive, he didn't waste any time from the time he was a teenager until his death. I mean, he was writing books, he was doing all these ceremonies.
Which it did seem like he was sort of selected in some way.
Yeah.
Because, you know, he had that idea from a young child that he was the beast 666, and he didn't even know what that meant when he thought of himself that way.
You know, everybody is really, even though it may not seem as important as, you know, somebody else, but is selected for some type of advancements in the great work. And just working on ourselves is a huge advancement.
That's all we can do, man. It really is. If everyone works on themselves, you know, and you know, we are in some type of dream, you know, and you know, the idea that there really is no you and me and everyone. It's really just the one. You know, there's really nothing but one, and it looks like, and we have these ideas in our mind that makes us feel like there's individuals, but really it's just one thing. You know, one you know, spirit that's manifested into all these things. And you know, how can you hurt someone else when you realize that that's you over there too?
Mm-hmm. You know, I've been thinking a lot recently, and like I said before, man, it comes and goes, but yeah, I've been thinking about and this makes no sense really, but what it feels like to be dead a lot, and what that's going to be like. But you know, if you just look at things, I mean, how does somebody not look at, you know, if you go observe what this body, this flesh looks like, from the process of when you first are dead, not until you get to the bones and after that the pile of dust, but that middle of that rotting looking. I mean, this is why so many people say, I hate God because, you know,
Look at all the suffering.
How could, you know, just
But it is suffering that allows us to awaken. Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about it. When you are suffering, when you are in sickness, or you're with a loved one that is sick and they're dying, that is what shows you, look, this ego self is not worth clinging to.
Yeah.
You know, it can be suffering, you know, it's not pleasant, obviously.
We truly realize this, and we would love for everybody to really start to examine these things. Me and him talk about it every time we get together, how short this very little existence is.
Dude, me and you are literally at the prime of our life right now.
Yeah, there's no point in us
No.
sitting around and talking about death so much. That's why most people see it. You know.
But this prime of our life is not going to last long at all.
Yeah, no, it's
very soon we'll be having
Very-
knee pains, back pains all the time.
very
and-
soon.
Yeah.
I mean,
And with all the toxic stuff that we've been eating our whole lives, because our food supply has been poisoned by corporations.
yeah.
I don't think none of us are going to escape without some health problems.
And the truth is, we live in a dark time in many aspects, and I think that how horrible this is, but also it's forcing us to open up to these truths.
Infinity.
Look, it's absolutely absurd that somebody would think that they need to live this life hurting as many people as they can just to better help themselves.
Yeah.
And karma, and doesn't exist, and they are just going to live it up and do whatever they possibly want to appeases the flesh gods, and then consciousness is over, and it's just nothing. I love when you brought up that. What
Yeah.
is nothing? Because it's still
This
no
still
thing.
implies a thing.
But there's some serious stuff going on. We can say from just what's happening in our lives. It seems to get a bit stranger each time we get together. Sometimes you can not know how to put these things into context. Like, for instance, I told you I've been thinking about death so much recently, and it comes and goes. I'll think about it for a little bit, and then it'll go away, and I'll try to be in the now, and then it'll come back, and it'll be even more, there. It's so real. It's like it's as real as touching this table right here, which at itself is not as real as
If
death.
something is certain, it's essentially already happened.
I love that.
And our death is essentially it's already happened. It's certain, and there is no escaping it. And that is the great, separation of our essence in our beat bodies, which will rot back into the earth.
My opinion on this is, and yeah, I'm glad you saw this the same way as well. I mean, it just seems a lot more practical that we do everything in our power this lifetime
Right.
to, even though it may not happen, but to do everything we can to knock off the possibilities of having to go through this again, because we haven't even began to deal with the old age problems or anything, but childhood can be it's suffering.
Yeah.
No matter how good of a family that you have to raise you, if you want to call it that, dealing with this, the way things are, man, it's so sad. Like the way things are already set up. I mean, that alone should be enough for anybody to say, "Wow, I don't want to live for this." It's really getting too much to bear at times, brother, man.
Yeah, it is.
really is.
It's just like we just keep as a society, as a global economy, like we're doing. Just the fact that more people aren't talking about alternative ways of running things is so crazy. And obviously money has a lot to do with it. People are profiting by the way things are being ran right now, but the way things are being ran right now is completely destroying our planet. And think about this. I think population is a problem. I really do.
McKenna talked about that as well.
I think
I didn't understand it.
I think population is a problem. I know, Elon Musk said he didn't think it was a problem, but I don't know about that. I think that it is a problem. This is another thing that's scary is smart people, intelligent people. I'm not saying it's not a beautiful thing to have a child, but a lot of dumb people are having children.
Yeah.
A lot of dumb people are having children. Dude.
But let's look at this. This is strange. You can look this up, by the way. Donald Trump either passed this or is in the process of getting a check of $5,000 to anybody who has a kid, because younger people are not having babies the way they should. That to me is insanity.
Think about this. This is the point I was going to make. McKenna said he asked the mushroom about this, and he said that a woman should have no more than one natural child, and how that would rapidly decrease the population fast, within 20 years. So what that does is it helps us not use so much resources because we have a resource problem.
Yeah.
But think about that. The reason that's not even talked about in a capitalistic economy is because that's more people. That's more slaves.
Exactly.
That's more slaves to more tax dollars and
Yeah.
and better for the economy. More drones mindlessly buying stuff.
Yeah.
I've
been thinking a lot about this recently. Since we've been as young as I can remember, have always, when we was young especially, we would constantly be wondering and kind of complaining a little bit, why do I have to be born in this time? People do say that, but I really feel this was really on a deep level. But that recently has come back to me, and I thought about
we was probably saying that in the 1800s too.
Exactly. The truth of it is, though, and I hate to say this, it's really gloomy, but I just really can't see things honestly getting too much better unless some really huge things change.
Right.
I don't know. Electric Wizard lead singer, I was watching a very cool interview by him yesterday, and he kind of lives like a recluse because he doesn't have like social media and stuff like that. And he gets out to tour, but he says like you kind of have to have something updating people about when these things are going to be. And he said, "Man, his exact words was, I don't know why anybody would want to start a band this day and time."
Yeah.
He said because he said back, in the '80s, whenever him and his band was formed, he said, it was just so much more. Things were real. It's like we've lost the aspect of real to what this is right now. This reality just it's gone downhill. So I agree
so
with
many
that.
people are living on social media and on the internet, and a lot of these platforms are manipulated, by there's a lot of bots and a lot of fake accounts, spreading propaganda. And it does seem like we're living in a fake world. In a sense, we've always lived in a fake world, but fake in terms of the information that we're getting. If we want to calibrate ourselves and reorient ourselves, we need to return back to first principles, our body, our minds, and our own experiences, nature. This is where the real action is. It's not in these, strange social games we play. We need to get back to the essence of life.
I see and read about these changes that taking place, and maybe it is, but maybe not to the extent of what we'd love to see. A lot of people, well, again, I've seen none of it because maybe it's the area we live in, but evidently there is some people that are 40s, maybe 50s and below, that's starting to realize that like the religion aspect, for example, like Christianity, maybe it isn't the way, and maybe this has just gone so out of control. You should talk about that. There's actually a religion that was practiced way more than Christianity, and he was telling me about this earlier. It just goes to show you it can change next year, and we can just be the population will be practicing some new religion.
Christianity wasn't practiced in 6,000 years ago.
The last 300 years? I mean, it's one of the What was that religion though? They
Oh, I was talking about
this was interesting.
the
I thought, good to bring up.
Eleusinian mysteries, and it was, I mean, maybe not quite a religion. It was connected to Greek religion,
Hmm.
and it lasted for like 2,000 years, and it probably ended during the advent of Christianity. The Eleusinian mysteries was this rite, they call it the rites of Eleusis, and everyone, literally worth their salt,
Yeah.
slaves and anybody was allowed to go to this festival, this rite that lasted like a week once in their lifetime, and it involved a psychoactive beverage, and they talked about visions, so it was probably a psychedelic thing, um, and yeah, that lasted 2,000 years, and everybody went. Plato went. I mean, everybody went. And yeah, and the fact that we don't even consider alternate ways of thinking is so insane to me. The fact that we don't explore all sides of things. If you're in the people that are rationalists, people that call themselves rational. I mean, I consider myself a rationalist. But I feel like a lot of rationalists, they live lives that support their rationalism. You know what I'm saying? And the reason for that is they don't poke around the edges enough. They stay confined within the culture. They don't mess around with psychedelic drugs. That's as on the edge as you can possibly get. And materialists and rationalists, they don't poke around edges enough. If we want to get to the bedrock of reality, we have to explore the edges.
There's something. These mysteries, as I mentioned before, they slowly start to reveal themselves when on these paths, and a lot of people, and this is the truth of why they join these culture made good guy organizations,
Mm.
such as, I mean, the biggest one, Christianity, is because they are scared to do the work themselves.
Exactly. It's lazy.
It's laziness and it's fear.
Fear.
They are terrified of
The abyss of reality. What really is happening.
and the truth is there is just the abyss of
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah.
It's not what they this is a mainstream religion that has scared people into worshiping it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Exactly.
the truth. They scare people. You will burn in hell for all eternity if you don't accept this and donate your 10% of money to my particular church every week.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gag for one thing,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to, as people
Of reason and
free will,
yeah.
any type of logic, we have to do our
the work.
part to spread awareness
Mm-hmm.
that about these
And spread opposing memes. The meme of the mushroom, the meme of magic and true will. Because there's all kinds of memes being thrown out all the time about getting saved and all these other memes.
We need
that we're
to
competing against.
we need to fight against this, not just sit back and just let it continue to go on, poison more brains that's already poisoned. I think that this mostly miserable place can be a lot more happy and logical and enjoyable if more people wouldn't be so close-minded to the truth. But as I mentioned, we feel that it's probably fear.
Yeah.
And you scare somebody, you're going to keep them in line.
Exactly.
And you're not only going to keep them in line in that part, but they also want to be good.
Yeah, exactly. The good guy badge.
And they're not
They
going
want to be perceived well by their parents and
well,
by their friends and the culture.
like what's legal and
Mhm.
illegal. Like a lot of places,
Mhm.
obviously, it's starting to turn around on this aspect. But I'm more of a good guy if I have me
Yeah,
some
some
alcohol
whiskey at night.
with my pizzas.
Yeah,
Have just to help me sleep better at night. And
yeah.
that's the bad person.
Smoke marijuana.
That's
It's illegal in our state. Then
all.
you're a criminal.
And now again, we're just talking about anybody who watches this, it could be different in your area, but we live in an area where people live in a lot of ways like the Victorian age,
Honestly.
uh, except they dress a lot more stupider.
Yeah.
That's the only bad
But
thing. Their
everybody,
language has dumbed down a
everybody, I
lot.
feel like has these intuitions. It's just cloaked and and it's repressed.
I love how Anton LaVey talks about. He said, "Well, mostly I don't feel that I'm any different than any other minister."
Yeah,
Except that he doesn't, like you said, cloak that he doesn't, pull the mask of
because
illusion.
we know all these preachers and all these people, they have desires just like anybody else does. It's no
And
different.
anybody who thinks otherwise, and you're just being blinded.
They literally they
Brainwashed.
would love to suck on a stripper's feet and
Ooh.
jack off in their face. You know what I'm
And
saying?
most of them probably do.
Exactly.
And if not, the worst, I mean, the worst thing they might be doing is just watching it online, like
Yeah.
most everybody else does.
Yeah.
These people, we've talked about some of these people, have had, because they teach, repressed feelings.
Yeah.
So they, when they finally do hit their little bit of a wild streak, they ask some rather unorthodox uh, situations, like that one involving that woman who was a prostitute, and he asked to do things with the daughter.
Dude, I literally saw.
Did you come across that again?
No, I didn't watch it again, but literally got so cracked up. I was looking through some records yesterday at a store, and there was Jimmy Swaggart from like the '70s. One of his records with him on the front of it, looking all cool.
Look,
I was like, wow, people literally are insane for entertaining this idiot.
if you guys want to listen to a good sermon, a good lecture, first of all, fuck all those people. You're never learning anything from them. Let's go to Terrence McKenna. Let's go to Leicester Crawley.
Free minds who delved into reality and had things to say.
I think one of the biggest points that we try to make is we bring all these examples up, but really don't just state what it is. We need to, and it goes back to him talking about the first principles. We need to slowly but surely try to rewire
Yes.
our brains,
Transform our consciousness.
and
this is why I'm so big on the psychedelics. I think there's nothing that will rapidly transform you more than that. There is not.
you see, we need to become, free thinkers.
Yeah.
And Socrates talks about you question what I'm telling you, which I'm being a free thinker, but why don't you question the system? The way how come you don't question what they're telling you? You just assume that because a large group of people are saying the same thing that they happen to be right. It's crazy how these things blow up, and it's just so the misconception.
The world is made of language, and literally our culture is held together by nothing more but words.
Yeah.
That were put together by people a long time ago. This is a law. It's nothing more but a mere string of words.
Yeah, but going back to that book that I was reading yesterday, I kind of just had one of those days to where I, pretty much had a whole day to myself and could research a lot of great things. I went to the bookstore, and I wish I could remember the name of the book. I'll have to research it again and write down what it is, and we'll mention it in one of our next videos in the next week or so. But it's actually something I'm wanting to really sit down and read more into, and probably later today we're going to try to read some more of that Magic and Theory and Practice. Is that what it's called?
Yes, sir.
The Crawley book. But these people, these Tibetan monks, these Dalai Lamas, they have a way of looking at things that when they present it to you, you know it's the truth. It's so logical. It's the most practical thing. And a lot of people look at these things and think that it's impossible. For example, they talk about if you mistreat somebody and you're constantly just like a grumpy person, you're always complaining and putting other people down, then you must hate yourself. If you show love toward other consciousness, then you truly love yourself. And I mean, I kind of like knew that, but the way it was worded there just furthered. I mean, because look, who doesn't get riled up at anybody?
Right.
But if we act on those impulses all the time, then we should question our self-love.
Yeah. And there's this, it's called Toltec wisdom. It's like this lineage out of Mexico, I think. And there's the 4 agreements. I mean, that's a pretty popular book. That's Toltec. And, one of the things in it that teaches is nothing that people do to you is because of you. It's always a projection of themselves, and so we shouldn't take anything personally that people do to us. If people treat us like shit, they don't know me. Why should I take that personally? They're literally just spewing out the poison that's inside of them. We should just let it slide off our backs. It doesn't mean anything.
Another thing that these Dalai Lamas talked about is from the moment we are born starts the corruption process. And we are literally getting more and more poisoned and corrupted until death. So that's why it's even more important to have these different magical ceremonies. And I think this is something...
Explore.
A lot of people talk about... there's a lot of books out there, and I kind of think it could be used for just an inferior reason. Like, I'm just not at all interested in casting spells for more money, and
right.
I mean that's understandable. It's just at the moment, obviously I don't have any money, but there's so much more,
at stake, at risk.
Yeah, there's so much more to worry about here, and I'm really curious on a lot of things, but a lot of people don't talk about, unless it's some of these people who's been dead for many years like Crawley, but we need to be more focused on what's going to be some of the procedures that take place after this very short existence. And another very important aspect we need to worry about is with all this corruption that's just constantly crashing down on us, we need to do different techniques to purify ourselves. Our minds need to be cleansed, and that
we have so much more power than we give ourselves credit for. We are literally the infinite poking its head into these finite forms. Obviously, because we are the infinite that has interjected itself into a finite dimension, there is limits to what we can do. But we can do a lot more than what we are doing. And cleansing yourself, and
this is something really needs to be done a lot more, because our minds, like, man,
if you're not taking time to drain this stuff out, it's just going to accumulate. It's going to result in mental health problems. It's going to result in you treating people badly.
People's health problems, people's
psychosomatic problems.
Man, the brain of the modern man, the majority is not in good shape.
The poisons that we're eating in our foods.
I mean,
the drugs that we're taking.
Something has happened recently. I mean, we need to examine why this is.
People do not think for themselves.
There's a lot of conspiracy theories out there. Some of them are probably onto something, and some of them, who knows. But that it's also probably good to not get too wrapped up into that world, but acknowledge that there's things.
Look at it, but don't necessarily cling and believe it vehemently. But
I mean,
explore the options.
We know somebody, and by the way, I meant to tell you this particular person her name starts with a B. You know, I'm talking about conspiracy theory woman.
Yeah.
She called somebody else that I know, and I feel like one of those gossiping 12-year-old girls. So and so
Yeah.
told so and so that she's not going to the dance tomorrow.
Yeah.
But anyway, she was just putting down like horribly people in our age group, and she started talking about they just don't understand. You know, that the government's doing this and the government's doing that, and they're happy to be involved in the rat race. And there's like, dude, okay, calm down. Like, you know, your husband that just passed away. Like, you want to talk about that rat race? I mean, he was
Try to support your fucking ass.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's easy for you to sit back and like never do anything. I'm not saying that like my wife doesn't work, hasn't worked in a great many of years, but she also knows that the few things that she does have, and it's usually just electronics and just stuff that she thinks is important.
Do your work as a sacrifice for Vishnu? That's what it says in the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, that makes things more.
You have stuff you got to do.
It's just
this
part
world.
of this existence.
Part of the world.
I
It's
mean,
part of it, man. If you know, we're always going to have to work in some way or another, and that's part of the suffering of life. You know.
Even Joey Diaz had to work when he was a thief.
Yeah. He said in one of the episodes, he said, so what? Like he's going to be president. He said, is any of these candidates, as soon as they say that I can stay at home all day and get my balls licked all day, he said, then I'll fucking vote for him. He said, but until then, I'm gonna have to go out and be a thief every single day. It's like, well, I don't know about that.
But yeah,
I get it. I get his point.
I do. You know, but touching a little more on getting attached to these conspiracy theories. Like, there's people. Let's just name, you know, like Tucker Carlson. You know, he's touched on some pretty profound points, but also, I mean, I would imagine he's never done any psychedelics or anything like that, and
it probably is against them. Honestly, he probably.
I hate to say that.
Probably would be.
He might be, and if that was the case, I would probably wouldn't even want to listen to him.
Yeah.
You know, he's obviously somebody, you know, I haven't listened to very much, but I mean, for the modern man, he doesn't seem horrible.
He's at least working on this 3D level. I feel like he you know, he does see a lot of the corruption that's going on. I feel like he does try to, you know, he does ask the hard questions and stuff like that. Oh, it's an alarm.
Okay.
All right, I didn't stop.
Good.
So
I thought we had less time than that, actually.
Yeah.
I'm glad to see that.
Yeah.
But I just want to say this, because I don't think we've ever said this in one of our videos, but please, somebody who watches this, please be very cautious about the information that we take to heart online, unless it's our channel. But no, seriously, we don't want you to like take everything we say. You know, we're it could
put
change.
everything to the test.
Put everything to the test, and we're just trying to figure things out. And but we can say that our teachers are really amazing. I'm going to actually show you, gentlemen, on a book that this is. Aleister Crowley, what do you think, in his late 60s, early 70s there?
Probably.
This is an amazing book. It's, you know, it talks about some of the drug experiences, obviously, that he had. And it's very interesting. It's, it uses a different name.
You know what I was reading, though? I read a part in that book that said, it was talking about, what's his name, Peter in that one?
Yeah.
He says, somebody was talking about Peter, and they was like, yeah, he's apparently like he's a founder of a Lima, this religion. I was like, well, that's kind of weird how he incorporated that in there.
That is weird, because something he didn't really use, but just kind of just used it for a second, but really didn't probably go nowhere with it too much.
Yes.
Hey man, real quick, I was just going to ask you by any chance couldn't make a quick like a small shell for me, could you, brother? Mm-hmm. Yeah, man, that actually, by the way. A kava shell. We've done a couple, but I started thinking, you know, if we talk for another 15-ish minutes or something like that, that'd be kind of really awesome, brother. This is a good gentleman right here who, every time I come down here, we have these ceremonies, and there's plenty of kava. We've talked about this in other videos, but if somebody's never watched another video and some reason is on this part, kava is a holy sacred plant that is not physically addictive, and the insight that it brings forth is quite amazing. And other properties of what was I going to say? Something really important. I was watching you fill up that cup, and I started getting seduced.
I understand.
Okay, I'll think about it. I'll go back to what I was saying. I'll come back to that later. But yeah, so the two really important themes that I've looked into more, because he's researched a lot about, Hinduism and Buddhism are two different things, but Buddhism does use a lot of things from Hinduism. But
Buddhism is like exported Hinduism.
Because the way we gather, Hinduism is, that part of the land is very holy. It's a sacred place. You know what? A lot of times when you're reading this stuff, oh man, like, it just sounds so cool, because this place here is like such a disgrace in a lot of reasons. And it could just be the way, as we mentioned earlier, we just like nobody really thinks for themselves anymore. I mean, I bring this up all the time to somebody who's a Christian, where, well, what if you were, is it called Islam? What's that?
Yeah, Islam is Muslim.
Is that the name of the place, Islam?
Islam is the name of the religion.
What's the name of the country?
Oh, it's practiced in all kinds of Middle Eastern countries, yeah.
Like, what if that was where you was from? Like, you'd be practicing that. Like, that's such a, ridiculous thing that nobody wants to talk about. Thank you, dude.
Yes, sir.
This Kava's been doing so much. Also, another thing about Kava. This isn't what I was going to say, and we've actually have a video talking about Kava after we first tried it. It really makes you more empathetic, and like it'll help you talk about things that you normally and maybe would be too backwards or nervous to talk about. And yeah, it's really amazing for that. But anyway, this is something that a lot of Christians don't want to examine. They get passed down this religion that they automatically cling to as the truth. And it can be scary. There's a lot of times I wake up 4 a.m. and death will they come upon me, and I'll get pretty uneasy about it. Just the thoughts of this ego being dead. And even though we always are talking about we need to do everything in our possible to keep that ego as low as possible, it's still there. And for somebody who is practicing this modern day Christianity, if you think about it, that ego is that balloon is as puffed up as it could possibly be. It's turned into this, look what I do, and how I never miss a church service. And when you separate from that and start getting these truths, sometimes it can be pretty scary, though, because you have ideas and you know that you're going to keep picking up ideas as time goes on. But there's also that, voice that's like, well, you don't know everything yet. You're learning these truths. Uh, what exactly is this process going to be like of death? And yeah, that I think that's the hardest part, you know. And then there's this part of not in like a suicidal way, obviously, but just as in, you know, this really sucks here. I'm looking forward to being dead, which this body is what will be dead, our spirits. You know, a quote that I love so much, and it's so true. It's your your flesh is killing your spirit, and that's to put it much more simply than that. Um, but without possible, it is. It's it's keeping down so many things that could be done, so many things that could make this existence so much easier and happier to live in, that could keep us from our personal growth, you know. But this, we have to remember, is a test. This is like a game, and there's things we can do to temporarily exit the game, you know, reach into the heavens, if you will. But yeah, we're just like we have the same worries. Maybe not as severe as what some people who's never like thought for themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, we think about, you know, death a lot, and he's been mentioning lucid dreaming. But I feel confident. One thing I love so much, and I think we listened. I think it was Ram Dass who said this. You know, there's nothing more satisfying than, uh, you know, you're at the end of your life, and after you're dead, you prepare to just fall into this abyss and then fall into a feather bed.
That was McKenna.
McKenna. That's true wisdom right there. That's
We talked about earlier.
I love that, man.
We were talking about people that do not abandon their local religions because of fear of that abyss. You know, the abyss of, because that, you know, these local religions, and they serve as a kind of safety net. You know, I was thinking about this the other day, like you know, all of these real philosophical questions about reality. You know, like death, for example. Like if you look at death without any kind of cultural net, it's pretty interesting. It's pretty perplexing. You know, could there possibly be an afterlife, or is it all black? Is it all nothing? You know, and you start to consider all these possibilities. But
fun though, in a way.
it is very fun, and I think that's part of this game too. Is it's kind of fun. You know, it's like putting a puzzle together. But if you have that safety net, it's, oh, this is what happens after you die. You know, it's all they have that they resort to their book. You know, this is how it is, and so they feel secure in that. You know, in that quote by McKenna, that talks about hurling yourself into the abyss, only to realize at the bottom it's a feather bed. You know, I think, to me, that's a beautiful thing, and I really do feel that to be the case in this point of my life. And what that means is trust the universe. This universe supports you. I mean, it obviously supports us because me and you
are able to sit here and have a conversation.
Exactly, without reality unraveling. There is an underlying supporting force. So if you're to trust the universe, that means that, and we know love exists in our universe. Just the fact that love exists in our universe, and people like Ram Dass exist, and real love is possible, and it seems that love comes out of the most highly conscious people. So I associate high consciousness and love with divinity, with God. You know, and if, you know, So trust the universe, trust God if you want to use that type of language. You know, if you hurl yourself into the abyss, you throw away all systems that
Yeah.
that people use to hide and from these scary, questions,
Yeah.
about reality. I have probably I've considered thousands of systems. I have considered thousands of ways of how this reality could be. Some of them are scary. I've considered, well, fuck, maybe this is hell.
Oh, I thought that.
Maybe this is maybe
Ringo.
maybe
I saw that recently.
maybe we are inside of some simulation created by a evil god who's a sadistic, you
Mhm.
know. That's an idea, somebody can make a religion out of that.
Yeah.
But when I see love and I see the possibilities here on this planet, I don't feel that that's the case, but
Yeah.
it could be.
It's rare to find somebody.
But that's what I mean, like that free of thinking.
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Yes,
Everybody
yeah.
needs to consider all these possibilities.
Yep.
And navigate according to their experiences.
Somebody who's, and I know I'm always using the religion of Christianity to poop on,
It's the local one.
but it's the one.
We could easily shit on Islam. I just don't know much about
I
it.
don't either.
I know it's kind of similar to Christianity.
But I just want to say, it's crazy. It is as insanely huge as it is. A lot of people accept these things to be the only truth. It's funny because this is in it. They teach turn a deaf ear to anything other than this.
Mm-hmm.
This is the truth, the way, and the life. There's nothing.
That's an interesting aspect of it.
It's weird.
It says not only believe this, but
turn a deaf.
but don't ever look at anything else because that would reveal that it's not real.
Can I just throw this out real
with a
quick?
little inspection.
This is strange to me.
Yeah.
We know somebody very old in age
Uh-huh.
who's practiced this religion, preaches this religion all his life.
Uh-huh.
And isn't it funny? He recently came forth and said, "I hope that it's right."
Yep. I simply asked him a question. Literally, I was not.
He also has a Catholic Bible though, which is weird to me.
That is interesting. That
He
the
recently.
Catholic Bible has what's called the Apocrypha in it,
Mhm.
and most like Baptists and Christians like that don't like.
Deal with that.
I was unfortunate enough to have to go through a Christian homeschooling program, and it is what it is. But I got through it, and they taught. I had to take Bible studies and stuff. Yeah, and that was one of the things that they said, like, do not read the Apocrypha. This is the Catholic Church's version. And it's
Is
not
that what
right.
the Bible's called?
What's that? The Apocrypha is the section. It's like 4 books that are not included in the King James version, and I'm not even sure what's in it. I don't remember.
I've got a quick question about this Catholics though. Is it really like how it was played in The Exorcist? Of like, do they really present themselves like Father Karras and stuff like that?
Dude, no, probably not, man.
I was
That
wondering
guy
about
was just a cool 70s guy.
Yeah, I got a good
It had
point.
nothing
He
to
wasn't-
do with Catholicism. He was just a cool 70s guy. But Catholics do seem to be more hedonistic. They'll indulge more.
Yeah.
They'll drink, they'll smoke cigarettes.
Well, they might as well just be a fucking Satanist then.
Exactly.
I guess it's still better than some of the stuff we have to do.
I always call Catholicism Christianity for sinners.
Yeah.
Because they can just, do this and pray to Mary and they're all good.
I was always, ever since we watched that movie,
I love The Exorcist. It's a great movie.
dude, man, like, I remember we watched it multiple times. Then, when me and my wife first started dating, that's one of the first. Actually, the first movie I ever showed her was either The Blair Witch Project
Yeah.
or Rosemary's Baby. I can't remember. I think it was Blair Witch Project.
I showed my girlfriend Rosemary's Baby. She hated it.
Really?
She hated it because she was like, "That's so terrible." Like,
A lot of people see it that way.
I get
man.
it. Yeah, it's not pleasant. It's not good. That
But it's definitely, if you know, I guess that's the point though in these kind of movies.
yeah,
They're
it's supposed to
supposed to
challenge
be,
you.
you
But
know,
that movie came out in 1968.
Mm.
2 years after an
Anton
actual
LaVey.
Church of Satan was founded. So that really, Rosemary's Baby was
And LaVey had a little bit to do with it.
Yeah, he Roman Polanski consulted him for how the rituals
Yeah.
were. But that movie was a manifestation of the Christian fear
Oh
of
yeah.
what a church like that
Yeah, it
will
was.
do.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
Obviously, any real Satanist, is not going to
I guess.
sacrifice their wife's child or anything like that. But that's that fear that was in Christians.
Think in a way though it may be bad for people who's like brainwashed because they might look at that and be like, I told you this is the way they are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
know.
Hollywood witches and it's so sensationalized and so much of this talk of sacrifice and stuff. Obviously, in very primitive societies like thousands of years ago, like the Aztecs, they sacrificed people.
I mean, look, both sides have sacrificed people.
100%.
The Christians have sacrificed more people than anything.
And they're newer.
Yeah.
They had more time to develop, and they still doing that.
They sacrificed so many people who.
And our government does it all the time.
Yep. No, that's the people. If you guys want to know the truth, it's the Christians who's done the most gruesome acts of anybody. They've killed more people. They've shunned more people.
If you disagree with me, I'm
they've
gonna
stoned people. Like they
stomp you out, man.
It's like this now, just in different levels. I mean, you may not. Sometimes you do, but you may not actually have killing, but they're up on this throne, and the rest of the world is down here wallowing in their filth of sin.
Because when I see somebody that has a different practice than I do or something, as long as it's helping them cultivate higher consciousness, if it's helping them contact this, if it's helping them contact spirit.
What the fuck have we talked about?
I know, and it's and they're using it as a method for liberation. I have no problem with it.
Yeah, man, I don't either. But the thing is, as long as you examine that, is this really what you want to derive your inspiration from, or is it just because you're scared and kind of getting into some?
That's the thing, man. I mean, we know all kinds of people in our family that young people like us who just follow right along.
There's nothing to be afraid of.
No, there's not.
The only thing there's to be afraid of is, this temporarily
is wasting our potential.
It's we need to. I said this once in another video, but I'll say it again. Put our heads together and try to keep what last little bit of wits that we have. That was a Blair Witch Project quote as well. But yeah, I say this all the time just because it's helped. It's helped us so much. Harnessing the lightning for hire. It can, like Raleigh said, you can do that with many different forms. But as long as we're doing it, that's other things will follow after that. And revelations. A lot of these things are hard to put into words, but I promise you,
because English is such a limited language.
Me and him really
are. It's a trade language.
We're truly having revelations.
Totally, and, every day.
I want to talk about a little bit. The last few nights I've, had some revelations. One of them was, I couldn't sleep, so I decided to conduct a Kratom Kava ceremony. And as I was drifting back off to sleep, I want to call them visuals I was having. Oh man, like what you would imagine would be Salvador Dali paintings. I was probably imagining.
It's probably a mixture of the creativity that you feel from the Kratom and Kava, plus the hypnagogic hallucinations that you have pre-sleep.
And I can't tell you anything about them, but I need to put the point across. Was revelations. It's one of the best ceremonies I've actually had in a while. Especially, if we do like a middle of the night ceremony, that's interesting enough. I want to point this out. If I have a ceremony myself, that's one thing. We talk about this a lot because it has to do with perfect alchemy, getting together. When me and him do our ceremonies together,
It's way more
It's
enhanced than
way more.
for sure.
It really hits hard. We feel like we're Crawley himself when doing these things, but
I'll tell you what the worst thing in the world is, dude. The worst thing in the fucking world. Gives me anxiety just thinking
Yeah.
about it, dude. Tripping
With the wrong kind
people
of
that
person.
you don't know very well, or maybe you think you know them, and then you realize, oh, I
don't really like these people very
Oh
good.
my god, dude. It's the worst feeling, dude. I remember one time me and the guy that I would buy cannabis from, and a friend that I worked
The
with.
game room guy. I got you.
We all took some mushrooms.
Meow meow.
And I made a terrible mistake. They both took about 3 dried grams, and I took 6, which is just a massive dose. Like that's a breakthrough dose. Talk about complete, utter groveling misery. Oh my god. I don't think I've ever been so sad, so scared, so insecure in my life. The mushroom was telling me, "Oh, you think you're Jim Morrison, don't you?" I swear to God. And I was just getting ripped apart, And I wasn't in a very good part of my life here, and I was making mistakes. I was doing things I shouldn't, and it just ripped me a new one, dude. As it should have. I needed that.
Anybody who,
and I'm sure I even did a little more to be a little egoic, And when you're not in that state, you might not see that. You can delude yourself into thinking like, I have a lot of experience with this. The thing with the mushroom is, and with other psychedelics, is it really comes down to surrender, and surrender is always a moment by moment thing. So you might have an easier time surrendering a couple months ago. You might have a hard time surrendering this time. So you really never know how you're going to be able to react to it. So that's something to keep in mind.
Of our mind changes so much. We can be in a time of a little more fear, maybe a little more jolly, a little more emotional, and these things can play a part in really any of these plants.
But all of those states, they teach you something in the psychedelic experience.
Definitely, I agree. Even on like Kava, I've noticed if I'm already a bit gloomy, I may have a little bit of that's kind of sad ceremony. If I'm already kind of upbeat, then I'll just more apt to be happy and laugh a lot. I love laughing more than anything. We both talk about this. It's very important in these dark times.
Laughing is medicine.
It sure is.
I'm excited to get back into the tryptamine realm soon, man. I really am. Haven't been in a while.
I'm excited to hear your experiences when going back into them, and I'm excited to do a microdose.
I cannot express how healing it is. Dude, these plants heal you on the deepest level. I know that sounds hippy-dippy.
That's the way it is.
And, there is totally all kinds of evidence to support this.
People say the hippie stuff.
Yeah.
Brother, since through the ages of time, people's been doing this stuff. Saying this, even though that people that don't know the psychedelics.
This is why I really do want you to get in there.
Yeah.
Is because, oh my gosh, the feeling of healing after it's over with, man. It just completely just refreshes your brain. It wipes it clean, and you're just so just happy and aware and alert.
It deletes the history of all the naughty things you've been looking at.
Basically, I was listening to Trussell, and he said he went to one of these what are they called? It was a psychedelic conference. Rick Doblin, he's an amazing person. He's still around doing the great work. He's pushing for medical use of psychedelic substances, and he's an amazing person. And he went to like one of his conferences or something. I forget what that organization is called, but he said somebody, some guy, like hair down to his back, gave him some powder, gave Trustful some powder. It was called Cambo. Okay, so there's ayahuasca in the rainforest. There's also maybe upriver they'll do this stuff called Cambo, and it's a powder. Uh, it's a powder form of TMT, and they shoot it up your nose. It's very uncomfortable. The way they do it in the Amazon, like if I was to administer Cambo to you, I'd hook a tube to your nose, load it up, and go. Okay, so the first nostril, it'll hit you. It feels like you're getting hit by a brick in the face. This is not fine powder. This is like nuts and like tree bark and stuff like that.
Motherfuckers got big balls.
Oh my gosh! And you'll literally roll on the ground, just in pain. And then by the time you're back up on your feet, ready for the next one.
Ooh.
But DMT. It has DMT in it.
Yeah.
And DMT, it's not orally active, but it can be nasally ingested, or it can be smoked. So these people are using it nasally. Obviously, ayahuasca is paired with the MAO, so it can be orally ingested. But yeah, Duncan Trussell did that, and he said he started purging, what they call purging.
I remember this part.
Yeah, which is like purging is when you're basically ayahuasqueros and people like that. They believe that your act of throwing up is getting rid of stuff that you need to.
Yeah, it's kind of like that black garbage coming out of meditation.
Exactly. It's like it's something that they want to do. Like the purge is part of it. You gotta get rid of all that stuff. So he said he was doing that, and he made a joke. He said like, I was throwing up like, deep Pornhub searches out of the cervical of my spine.
I think I remember that actually.
Yeah.
That part of it. That's interesting, man. It's
yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a purification though.
Yeah,
it's
these plants are
teaching
healing
at the highest level, isn't it, man?
It really is, man.
I know that. I haven't even been into the psilocybin realms, but
hyperspace.
I do know though. I know.
Well,
I don't know anything about the visual or anything like that, but I know it's a
I bet you
purification,
know.
a teacher.
I bet you did know. That's what McKenna said the mushroom says to him a lot. The mushroom will say, I bet you know. I bet you did know.
Ooh.
It was weird because he said that in one of his lectures without even saying anything about it. He just said that. He said, I bet you know. I bet you did.
Is that how he started the lecture?
No, but he was just talking and he said that. And I remember him from a previous lecture saying that the mushroom talks like that. So he was literally said that just and didn't explain it or anything.
Oh,
I was like, that's cool.
That is cool. Whoa. Yeah, his lectures you have to pay really close attention to, because if you miss one thing, you might miss the whole thing. But also, they seem to be kind of like Crowley's poetry. They're layered.
Yeah.
There's just every word he says, it goes into Ram Dass too. So that's a story.
You gotta be attentive.
So we need to break away from these 15-second videos and start going to those.
We don't start doing YouTube shorts.
We don't even watch those. We actually. That's probably why we haven't done YouTube shorts. We're trying to teach y'all to have long attention spans. And if you motherfuckers watch all of one of our videos, we greatly respect you for listening.
For
real. We ramble. We get on these plants, we have these ceremonies, and we rant like Crawley himself.
I've had quite the sinus headache today, so if I look a little
under the weather.
Yeah, that's why, man.
Yep.
You ready to wrap this one up, dude?
I'm ready, brother.
I think we've done enough yapping today, brother.
Right enough.
All right. Hare Krishna. Keep raising your consciousness in the face of this hellish control that, it's so crazy that's, non-awakened people are making decisions every day that are affecting our planet.
Precisely.
But as Ram Dass says, whether it's the Aquarian Age or whether it's nuclear holocaust, we must continue to work on our consciousness.
I want to state one thing. The sacred plant revealed to me many months ago Didn't know what this meant. The thought came to me when I was on the sacred Kava Kratom combo, and I had the truth revealed that the number 4 is the number of death. He texted that to you. I didn't know what it meant, but I came across an old Japanese religion book, and number 4 in there is the number of death.
Interesting. It's like McKenna talks about
Read what that happened.
Okay, wait. What was I saying? McKenna said oh yeah, he said that the mushroom told him one time that it's rhyming is easier when you're by flowing water. He said he later found some Celtic text that said rhyming is easier when you're by running water. These plants can do that, man.
Pay attention after me telling you that. You might start
Yeah.
seeing Ford a lot.
Yeah,
I was going to say that.
interesting.
Also in Japan, they have like a 60-foot Buddha statue. I
Yes,
thought that was cool.
that's where Tyler is stationed right now.
Oh
in
wow,
Japan.
that's
He
amazing.
sent me a video
This-
of
him
a
around the
cool
statue.
park, not the statue.
It's a holy park.
Yeah,
It's a very holy
Yeah.
park.
yeah, man. The Buddha is.
They get
amazing.
upset. A lot of people get upset if people's arguing. They're like, "How dare you? Confound you for
Yeah.
arguing in this holy, sacred place." I don't blame them. Anyway, is it Harurama?
Hari Rama.
Harurama, and harness the lightning for hire. Be the lord of your spirit.
Hare Krishna, live with death over your shoulder. It is coming soon.